Okay, I am on record. Okay, let me quick do screen record on you. Oh, and then maybe like you introduce yourself.
Sure.
Like we just like got like, yeah.
Wait, actually, I feel like that's the host job though. Like you introduce the guest speaker.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I was gonna be like, oh, Michael. Pretend like I just
let people know where they can connect with me. And like, yeah, this is my Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pretend
Right.
we just like came on again. So. Okay, I'm gonna hit record.
How many of us were depressed, like clinically diagnosed with depression by senior year? The numbers are scary, you know?
Yep.
And I reconnected with some friends and I'm like, yo. And then we were just thinking about our time and they're like, yeah, I had depression. I was like, I never knew that. Because like, you keep playing your part, you know? Like, no one cares that you got depression. You need to do what you gotta do. And so...
Yeah.
And so it was wild.
Yeah.
And then, so that's why we tried to organize, because you're like, well, you know, now we're all working professionals. We have a better sense of what we want to put up with. But yo, like, would not talk to us. We would email, they would, you know, lead us in circles and not answer. Just, you know, they tired us out until we gave up, because a lot of us were like, yo, I am starting to be triggered by experiences that I thought were resolved, but it's not changed. And so the thing fell apart, but
yeah, we just get boxed into it's just about their feelings, you know, like
I think that's where, like, I know that it's always a fear. Personally, I'm not of the mindset of just generalizing. I do think that you can talk about the theory of what is white privilege, but I think when you think about white folks, you need to individualize and you need to realize who doesn't care, who doesn't know better, and who is willing to learn. And that's, I don't think, for you to sort out. I think folks sort them out with what they say and how they talk to you.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And
that was the thing that to me was the difference, is that with students, if someone doesn't want to talk to you, they don't talk to you. But when you were dealing with professors, when you were dealing with administration, and you see that, you know, that lack of willingness to meet where you're at, that to me was the problem. And that's when I realized, if you're not trying to see me for who I am, then I don't need to understand why you see me this way. That is your problem and that is your journey. Mine is this way. See ya.
Yeah. Wow. Like, I didn't even know that you guys were even taking initiatives to start something. But, like, kudos to you guys for even thinking about...
I don't think much came out of it,
but even trying, like, my goodness, you guys have so much strength. For me, it was just like, peace out. Like, I'm gonna graduate. I will never say hi to you. I will never give you a single money anymore, and bye. You know, like, that was me. I was done. I was so done with that college. Again, like you said, like, it gave us depression. It gave us so much. For me, it was a very traumatic experience, my college. It was so traumatic that, you know, to be honest, like, when people try to ask me about it, I black out on most of those.
No, I know exactly what you mean. Like, people will tell me things, I'm like, I'll be honest with you, I blocked that year out of my mind. I don't know what you're talking about.
Me too. I can't recall. I'm like, oh, that happened?
Yeah.
And I feel like it sucks because, you know, people talk about how college is their greatest experience and it will never come back and da-da-da. Like, I agree. Like, it should have been the greatest experience, like one of the greatest experience that we get to experience, especially, I don't know for you, like, are you a missionary kid, Michael?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. You're a missionary kid, right? You don't have a cozy background. I'm assuming you come from, like, very, you know, let me just put it this way. You got to where you got to because of what you did, because of you fighting, because of what you did, what you deserve. Like, you don't just take, what you don't deserve, like, you actually fight for it, right?
Yep.
And it's the same for me. Like, I don't come from a wealthy background. Like, I don't come from a cozy background where, I get, spoon-fed, like, So I don't know, like that was one thing that I always had a hard time kind of trying to justify, oh, they're just kids, is because of the hurtful things they would say to me when I try to talk about, hey, there actually is racism on campus and I'm trying to raise awareness, and they'll say, oh, like what? Give me evidence, right? Like as always, like they're like, show me the receipt, show me the receipt. I do. I tell them this is what's happening, and the response I would get is, well, why don't you just go back home then?
I know. Oh, I've had that. I've had people even saying, like, because I started Darwin during the Trump election 2016.
Oh my god.
And I was terrified because I don't think before I came here I understood what it meant to be black, because when you're home you're in the majority. And I was terrified. But you remember I was involved with the Democrats Club. I was in debate and whatnot.
Yeah.
And people would tell me, you're not from here. Your opinion on politics does not matter. You shouldn't have a say. And I'm like, if you were in my country and you were worried about politics, how the president's action would impact your safety, I would think that's a very valid fear to have. But why? It made no sense.
Yeah.
And I think maybe I got jaded really fast because my fiance, she's white American, and she asks me sometimes how many white friends do you have from college? I'm like, I only have one. And it's not because of anything, but I'm like, that's the one person who took the time to see me for who I am. But everyone else is all them international kids.
Yeah, it's the same for me. And you know me, Michael, I don't socialize. I was a recluse myself, I don't hang out with you guys much. I feel like with you, since I respect a lot out of you, because I think you're such a smart kid. You're so highly intellectual, very intelligent, very great at understanding humanity. And then on top of it, you freaking care. You care about humanity. And, to the point that even though you are a black man in a very much white community, very, very white community, you are brave enough to even get involved in clubs like that, I always had so much respect for you. I always thought you were brave. I always thought, man, this guy actually truly freaking cares. Because for me, it was more of I'm going to ignore everything. I don't give a shit, but I was I don't know, I do only actually have one white friend as well, but even that, I don't know, I don't want to talk too much about it because they are now part of my family, to the point that I call their mom I have they have truly become my sisters, and they don't see me any different than their actual blood and all that. But there was this one time we were trying to visit the friend that I made in college. She's down in Florida. We were trying to visit her, and funny thing is, the mom and her sister, we all actually have a same birthday type of deal. So one's on the 24th, mine's 25th, and one's the 28th or something like that, and we're all born at the same date kind of. So we thought, let's celebrate our birthday and go surprise this friend. And so we were standing in line at the airport, and the sister, I'm gonna call her Annie. So Annie showed mom this meme that's been circulating, and this is when Trump was still president and still POTUS, and the meme was, it's just about their feelings.
Whoa.
Yeah, and it was about how the politics and how whatever the POTUS makes a decision, it's just about our feelings. And mom and Annie agreed, they were and kind of just agree. That broke my heart. Heart. Because they are the family that I thought were very solid when it comes to moral grounds, right? They were the people that I kind of had this kind of a glimmer of hope, thinking, oh, they get it. They actually get what racism is, right? And then all of a sudden they pull something like that on me, and I don't know, my whole ground is shaken again, and so, and I try to kind of touch on that subject with them, but it's still very sore even for me, because I don't want to outright claim that they're racist, because I know that they're not. Like, when it comes to the whole grand scheme of things, right? They are not. However, like, when it comes to certain things like that, like, why is it that it's just being categorized into feelings when they, on the other political stance, think it's about their, you know, economy, it's about the way that their family will survive and all this. Like, why can't they understand that it's the same thing for us, you know? Even though we are international kids, even though we have no say in their politics, like, we are affected by it, you know? And it's not just about, I don't know, I don't get it. I just don't get where the block is, you know? So yeah.
I think it comes from the fact that they think that one, it's an isolated experience, because a lot of us, we just don't tell our business to others. I mean, if you heard me talk at Dort, I don't think I ever talked about my experience of being a black man at Dort, but I would be talking about the politics of, you know, that's why I was in Democrat Club, and so I was vocal, but never about my own experience. So a lot of people, they just thought, oh, maybe Michael is just a very introverted guy who doesn't like to smile. And not, maybe he's depressed, you know?
He's just a cool guy.
And so I think because of that, people don't realize how many people are impacted. And the second thing is, I don't think they understand how that can dictate so much in your life. And you know, I won't be naming them, but I know that I remember friends that went through Dort. They arrived, and I knew this guy from back home, extroverted, really a people guy and always outgoing. Senior year, the quietest dude. He never socialized and always was just doing his thing, focused on his studies. That was the only thing that got him going. And that's, I think, what people don't understand is that, sure, it might be a feeling, but it's a feeling that can really handicap you in so many ways, because now you're not going out, you're not seeking out opportunities, you're always afraid, you have that anxiety, you have self-doubt that you might have never had before coming here. And I had that too. When I came, I was like, part of why I was involved in all these things, because I felt like I need to prove myself that I deserve to be here. When no one else was doing that, you know? Like, we all felt that way, but not everybody did. Like, that came from white America. And so I think that's why some folks don't. But the other thing to that, and I think that's a personal choice I made, is I really believe that there's a base level of being a reasonable person that I don't think everyone, and it doesn't matter like what your race, your religion is, I don't think everyone lives up to that, which is the idea of, can I for a second try to put myself in this person's shoes and see if this makes sense? So like when someone would say, oh, they're just acting this way, it's just their feelings, I would think the first thing you should ask is, if you were in that position, what would you do different? Can you recognize that there are factors that are bigger than you that keep you in that position? And when people aren't capable of doing that, I don't invest in a relationship. And my fiance, she's like, yeah, you definitely have some like strict criteria, but I'm like, it's not being strict, it's just really this idea of like, I don't want to be with someone that I need to give a logical explanation for why I'm feeling sad, because sometimes it will make sense and sometimes it don't, and it doesn't matter. If you're there and you love me and you will support me no matter what is causing me to feel a certain way. And I think that's just being a basic good human being. And so that's why to me it's really hard when, I don't know, when someone might say something like that, well, it's just your feelings, and not really think about, even if it's just their feelings, can you at least recognize how it's impacting their life?
Exactly. Like, even, of course it's about feelings, because of course it affects our emotions, duh, right? However, there's so much more factors that goes into why our emotions are being affected. It dictates our visa, right? Our visa sponsorships, it dictates our economy, it dictates so many things. And like, I don't know why, like you said, like why people can't kind of put themselves in our place. And that's the part that really always gets me too, is that part. And yeah, like again, like for me, like it was easier for me to just kind of try to chalk it up to, oh, they're just kids, right? However, like I don't know, I just feel like I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, Michael, but I've actually experienced racism since I was a child, like ever since I was in kindergarten. Because
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I'm over it now, but it made me stronger. But and also I feel like because I went through that, I'm a little bit more fine-tuned to and recognizing what racism is versus just negative stereotypes and all of this shit, and also just being more empathetic towards this whole situation. But I don't know, like so I don't know, like even like back at home, like when I was like experiencing all of this like stuff, and I don't know, just the kids, right? I always felt like I gave them too much excuse, saying, oh, they're just kids, right? However, I feel like if you and I, right, Michael? Like if you and I could discern that this is racism, that we can morally make judgment and say, this is not how we are supposed to be treating each other, why can't they, right? And I guess what I always had a hard time kind of accepting was the hypocrisy of it all. It kind of boasts itself as this Christian community, right?
Yeah. And
Christianity, it's also all about, well, it's supposed to be all about the love and inclusivity. Yet somehow, like, I don't know. I feel like we were just treated so differently. And I know for a fact, like the gaslighting, you did mention that we were just gaslit. Like you bring up a situation and just us being gaslit. That's the part that freaking sucks too, is because we are so helpless. Even when we speak out, right? We're still in this like kind of like victim mode because we remain victims. No one's freaking helping us. And that's the part that sucks, right? And that's the part that traumatized me, is because of the fact that I am so helpless. I'm so helpless. It doesn't matter how great I am at articulating my trauma. It doesn't matter how great I am at trying to explain that this is racism. It doesn't matter if I have evidence, which I did. I actually have so much evidence. Even now, I can still bring up receipts of how I was being racially, prejudiced against.
Yeah.
It didn't make a change. It didn't freaking matter. And yeah, like, I don't know. Like, do you feel like that will ever change? Do you feel like it's something that will ever change?
I think you would need, like, you mean the world in general.
Let's go small. Let's go.
I don't think it will change unless they have a different group of, I don't know, people who fund the school and people who lead the school. Because the fear, I mean, this is an example, right? I don't know if you probably remember when people were driving around town with Confederate flags.
Definitely.
So one time, Joas and I, we went to the cinema.
He told
me. And
me.
we came out at night. And we're just walking home. And it's night. And it's just the two of us out in the streets. And this pickup with Confederate flag pulls up. And they start calling us the N-word.
Oh, yeah.
And in my mind, I knew that if they got out of the car and decided to, pardon my French and feel free to censor, but to fuck us up, it would be in our interest to not fight back and let them do what they needed to do. Because if we started fighting back, we were in the wrong because of the perception of what a black man, how violent they are. And people would probably still think that we instigated it somehow.
Exactly.
The other thing that we were terrified is like, these people are all strapped. They all have guns and we don't have nothing. Like, there is no way we can come out of this situation. And thank God they just drove out. And I look at Joas and I'm like, this is the last time you'll catch me walking out here alone at night.
Yep.
And he's like, same. And we never did again because of that fear and that realization. But then what happened? Because we weren't the only people who were seeing that. So when we said that, no one cared. But then you had some white folks with adopted kids who started to feel unsafe too, because they're like, hey, I have like kids and these people are driving around town with Confederate flags. So what did they do? Do you remember what they did? They had a prayer night. A prayer night so that the Confederate flags would go away. And in that moment, I was like, that makes no sense to me. That makes no sense that when you could hold your community accountable to a basic standard of humanity, you pass this on to God.
Yeah.
Regardless of my religious views, to me that was the biggest dismissal I could have seen. Like, we don't care enough to try to take an action. We'll just pray for you.
That's a sad reality. That's a freaking sad. Yeah, when Joas told me.
And that's why I don't think it's going to change. Yeah, I'm sure Joas remembers that man very well too.
Oh yeah, like I asked him, because again, like I told you, like I just felt like it was a haze. Like everything's so hazy because I was so traumatized by the whole incident of it all that sometimes I kind of question my own reality, right? So I asked Joas, I'm correct, right? I'm right? That we were actually facing racism, right? Because everyone around me, all these white folks are telling me,
like we're not even talking micro, we're talking overt.
Exactly. And oh my gosh, I don't even want to get started on not the overt ones, but but yeah. So like I asked him that. I was like, did you experience something? Like, did you? Because I do, but I feel like everyone else is just so scared, either so scared to talk about it or they're just denying it, straight up denying it. And there were international kids, and there was especially one person, he's actually one of your friend group, he runs in your circle. I hated that guy so much because freaking they talk about white worship, right? He was the model Asian kid for representing white worship, because I was just like, bro, like this is not okay by me, because every time
I know exactly what you're talking
about.
I
think you know. So, and
it's probably the same guy who told me once, you know what, I admire you poor people, you have such a resilient spirit. I'm like, I don't know what's keeping me from like smacking you right now.
Poor people, sure. Yep,
poor people. I was like, wow.
Wow, so much offense. Anyways, but yeah, like even then, like I was just always like so angry at the fact that like even within the minority group, there were kids that were denying the fact that there is racism, So yeah, Joaz did tell me about that incident, and oh my gosh, I cried like, and you know me, I'm an emotional, I cry for everything, of course. Like it's so easy for me to cry, and
big heart.
I take after my dad. We cry over everything, but yeah, like I mean, what else is there? Like, what else can I do except cry?
Yeah.
Especially like with us not having any voice, not having much impact at all. Like that was all I could do, was just cry for him, right? But yeah, let's kind of move on from it, because it's just gonna start the waterworks again. Because I'm like,
I don't mean to trigger you.
No. It's just kind of like when it comes to like Joaz, like he's our brother, he's our little brother, So it's just like, who the frick did that to you? Show me, I will go after that. But yeah, it was just it was very traumatic, and I don't know, like I felt more hurt, more pain, kind of knowing that it was real. It was really true, that I wasn't the only one that felt that incident, that racism was there, because every white folks denied it. Every white folks around me, including professors, denied it and said no, it wasn't. But yeah, I want to talk about the N-word, if you don't mind, a little, because you did talk about how they, use that slur against you. But before that, like before we kind of totally moved away from the college scene, so one of the things that I experienced was me having being graded worse just because of my name, or they realize that I am not white, right? You know my name, it's very tribal. It's very not white, right? It's not very Dutch. So so my experience is this, and I don't think brother-in-law would mind, but sharing the story. But we were in an English class. It was some sort of responding to lit or whatever. I don't even remember what exactly the class is, but it was some sort of English class where we had to write a paper. My brother-in-law, he's not very good with punctuations. He's not very good with spelling. He always makes spelling mistakes, like, and not to like degrade him or anything, but you know what? Compared to him, I feel like I freaking rock. Like, I always do so good with my papers, you know, especially if I have textbooks to like kind of gleam off of, and like, you know, if I can afford a textbook, I always do great. And you know, I thought I wrote an exceptional paper, but somehow I got deducted a whole 5 points because I missed one punctuation mark, one comma.
That's messed up.
Yeah, and I was so mad, Michael. I was so mad. And you know, I talked about this incident and I said, I always wonder, I always go back to that because I think I always, like, I don't know, like there's just something about it. Like, I can't say, because I can't just conclude, like, right, that this is racism. I cannot, because I don't have enough evidence that this is actually racism. However, like, I always go back to that mindset of, what if I had a white name like my brother-in-law, right? What if I had a Dutch name like my brother-in-law? I wonder if they would have deducted that whole freaking 5 points off of my paper just because I missed one punctuation mark, versus his, he had what, 50 misspelled words, you know. Doesn't have any great punctuation marks. Like, I don't know, and maybe it's got to do with my ego too, I don't know, but it freaking hurts, you know, because
no, it does.
You know how much 5 points is.
That's going from an A to a B plus.
For an Asian kid like me, that's the difference between eating rice at home and not eating rice at home. I'm joking, guys. I'm joking. That's a racist joke, but yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Like, did you ever experience kind of something like that where you felt like you were kind of being particularly secluded or particularly targeted for having a non-Dutch name or a not white name? Or
I don't think I ran in circles, like, because I did history, and all things considered, the humanities tend to be a lot more woke, if you will. So I know that in my department, it wasn't so much because I was, you know, a foreigner. I know that I had professors grade me more harshly because they wanted to see me do better. Now, as to that philosophy, I have my own objections, but I don't think it was ever because I was black. It was really more because we think you can do more. But yeah, but I know that I've heard from other friends, and I 100% believe everybody who says they have experienced it. I know it's never been my reality. Yeah.
That's awesome, though. Like,
the
at
one
least
saving grace.
Yeah. At least one less trauma for you, Michael. Yeah. One other thing that I used to experience at was, you know how they would break up in groups because you have to have group projects? I don't know about the history department, but
I didn't do that.
Lucky you.
I started business and then I jumped ship because I was like, I cannot do these group projects.
Me neither. Oh my gosh.
Because I'm gonna end up doing all the work. I know how it goes. Because this means, you know, this will change my life. This degree will change my life, and y'all are just playing. So I stopped taking business and did something more individual. Yeah.
You know, I wish I was brave enough to change my major, but oh well, it's giving me good money right now. So
that's what I was about to say. Like, when that paycheck comes, you're just like drawing your tears with Benjamin. It's like, maybe this is alright.
But yeah, like, so I guess, you know, that's irrelevant for you then. But yeah, like, that was something that I always experienced too, is somehow because I look like this, and again, not to throw shade on my minority friends back in college, but some of them, you know, the Koreans especially, had very thick accent, right? And sometimes they don't speak as well when it comes to the accent, right?
You're talking about the J1 students, the exchange ones?
Yeah, the exchange ones. And I don't know, like, I feel like, of course, like, you know, when it comes to white people, all Asians look the same is how they stereotype us, right? And I don't blame them. I feel like sometimes, yeah, like I have a hard time, you know, differentiating the Dutch women too, so I don't blame them. However, like, I don't know.
I
like,
have a hard time telling my family apart. Like, as a kid, I would mix up my dad and my uncle all the time because I'm like, yo, look the same.
oh, that's cute. Yeah. People have a hard time differentiating me and Clara when it comes to voice, but when we talk over the phone.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Right,
right? I never thought you guys sounded alike. And I get that too with my brother.
But then again, you're very highly intellectual, so and like very intelligent.
Oh, thank you, but
yeah.
I think you don't need to do that.
Like you recognize patterns that other people don't. So
if you sit long enough with someone and you remember who they are, you shouldn't be making mistakes like that.
But yeah, anyways, let's go back to topic here. So yeah, that was something that I experienced too, is like in group settings, because I look Asian, you know, they would just somehow exclude me altogether. And you know, the professor will give us some prompt, right? They'll say, hey, go discuss about this, and I'll talk about, well guys, this is actually what we're supposed to discuss, and I'll try to kind of hark them back onto topic and what we're actually supposed to do, because Asian kid, I play by the rules, right? Like, this is what we need to do. Please, let's get A, please. And then everyone else will just ignore me.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, I feel like somehow, like, is it because, like, I look like this and they think I don't speak English? And even though I speak perfect English, I enunciate well, blah, 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 like, somehow it still translates as this muffled tone in their ear. You know, like, I never got that either, but you never experienced it, so I guess we can't share.
No, I don't think I could really speak to that.
Yeah.
Because the only, like, group projects I would think would be Core 399.
Oh my god.
And I think by that point, I was so, like, done, because I'm like, y'all play with me. I'm bringing us all down. Like, I don't care. You do your work, I'll do mine, and we stop playing. And so we did okay, because I think everybody was just, you know, I got lucky to have serious people. But I also know that in college, and I don't know if that's because I was on debate, but people were not, I wasn't confronted by my peers. I think people were intimidated, maybe because I was a black man who knew how to debate, I don't know. But I was rarely challenged in terms of, like, oh, we think you're crazy because, you know, like anything like that. There was one time, and that was weird because that was in that came from like a really religious guy, and we were talking about ancient religions, the beginnings of, you know, Islam and whatnot. And I was like, okay, sure, this is a Christian college, but this is a history class. What if we apply the same level of scrutiny to the Bible? What would come out of it? And I kid you not, man, this dude, his face flushed red. He was upset, and he said, we should burn the heathen. And I'm like, what the fuck kind of medieval shit is this, man? Like,
wait,
I was shocked. I was so like, this guy then started to like go off about a bunch of nonsense to the point that the prof had to be like, we need to stop this conversation. It's not happening. And I went to the prof's office. I'm like, how the fuck did you let someone talk to me like that in class? And he was like, you gotta understand, like, I putting an end to the conversation is all I could do. I'm like, that's wild, man. That's wild.
That, you know, I call freaking BS on that, because I was in Core 399 class too, where I was in this, you know how they like separate us into different subgroups depending on the topic. I specifically choose the one where this professor was wanting to talk about religion, and I started questioning him on why he chose to become Christian after he was, you know, Muslim, right? He converted his faith from being a Muslim. We
had a converted Muslim professor.
We did.
Hell?
I'll tell you his name later. But yeah.
Yeah.
So
damn.
The first ever session we had, I asked him that question, right? Because I told him, well, professor, isn't it lovely that, you know, in Muslim religion, you get the benefits of being a Christian too, and on top of it, you get like how many virgins in heaven just to make it light, right? Like I didn't want the atmosphere to be too dark. And I don't know if he just didn't get my humor, but he took it very serious. And I was targeted right away. So the second class, I asked again, like, well, how can you prove there's the existence of God when you can't empirically give evidence that, you know...
I know who you're talking about. I think I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was Muslim, though.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so I asked him this, right? Like, you can't just say God exists, yet not have proof at this modern day and age, because we live in an age where kids like us want proof, right? Yep. So, but the thing is, like, Michael, I didn't really need him to prove it to me, because if he were to truly stand by his faith, right, he could just say, well, all I have for you, as evidence is my faith, and I would have gladly accepted that answer, right? Gladly. However, no, he went a whole different route and said, well, do you know the infinity? I was like, yeah. And he asked, okay.
I remember mentioning that in college. That man was on some other shit. Like,
yeah. And I don't know, for some reason he asked me who I was, asked me to state my full name, asked me to state my degree, as somehow that is relevant to the conversation, to ask me what my background is when it comes to religion, and then say, do you know what infinity is? And I said, sure, I do. And then he wrote it on the blackboard.
We low-key came up with the concept.
Exactly.
Right? That's India. That's where the zero comes from.
Thank you. So
welcome.
I was like, and then he wrote it on the board, right? And he said, God is this. God is this. And I was like, this is my proof. This is my empirical proof that God is this. And I was like, but that doesn't freaking make sense, because the infinity actually has, I'm not going to go too much. But so when he asked me the question, does this make sense? I said no. And then he goes straight to, well, of course it doesn't. Like, as if I was not intelligent enough to grasp the concept of freaking infinity. First of all, I felt very offended, and second of all, guess what happened? After the class, he asked me to meet him in his office, and right outside his office as we walked out, he called up to me and he said, I need to meet you at the office, and also if you can kindly not, well, I don't think he was as kind. I this is not verbatim, but something along the lines of like, if you cannot please not speak out anymore because you're taking up all the time in class. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, sure, I'll meet you in office. And he said, I'm more than willing to talk to you, like, one-on-one in my office. I was like, sure. So I made an appointment, met up with him in his office, Anyways, even after this second office visit, he tries to prove that, you asking me if God, whether or not God exists is irrelevant, because you, like, as scientists, can't even prove gravity exists either. And then he just kept holding the pen like this, and I was like, well, freaking drop it then. And he was like, no, like, you can't make me drop it.
Bro, I'm telling you, that man was on some other shit. Like,
and I was like, as if that somehow proved that gravity doesn't exist. Like, what a
no, I remember you mentioning how he would, like, essentially ask you to stop talking in class, right?
Yes.
I don't remember which one it was.
Yeah, and then, guess what? After that, I got an email where he threatened me, Michael. That was the part that I didn't share much with people outside, some of the people that I truly actually trust, because that was a breaking point for me in college. Like, because it's kind of like, I come from a Christian faith. I come from a Christian background. I ask these questions because not to, like, make you sound stupid, but to actually truly know if this faith that I'm pursuing is actually worthwhile pursuing, right? And it's to kind of deepen my faith, which they keep trying to preach to us, deepen your faith, like, find God. Yet somehow when I ask this question, I get threatened to be kicked out of college if I bring up the subject again. And he said, you have two choices. Either you drop out of my class, or you stay in my class and you keep quiet the rest of the semester.
What the hell, man?
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that very well because I think you and Joas came over to my apartment and you showed me the receipts.
Oh.
And I was like, I'm gonna go talk to this motherfucker. And you're like, no, chill.
You know what? Joas is just my spirit animal. He helped me out so much through my dark times because, yeah, I don't think I would have been able to finish college without, people like you, people like Joas. So, thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Likewise, man. Like, you guys kept me grounded because...
Yeah.
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 Because you really start thinking, like, maybe I am tripping. Maybe this is all in my head.
Right. And I don't know, Michael. Maybe I was in the wrong. But I thought. So he,
if anything, like, specifically because I know who this guy is, and maybe this is not relevant to the podcast at this point. Like, feel free to get it out. But, I mean, this guy was just on some bullshit. Because I don't know if you remember, but even, like, science profs started to, like... They had this beef through the school's paper about evolution and creationism, and it was just people I never thought I would be like, that's my guy. Bro, I was like, damn, I'm actually agreeing with this motherfucker. But yeah, no, oops, almost dropped his name. But that man was on some crazy shit.
Oh yeah, he was like, oh goodness. I mean, I think I
wanted to take a class with him. I'm like, I'll make your life hell.
Yeah.
But by the time I knew who he was, I was like, I already have all my electives.
Yeah.
I don't need this shit.
Yeah. It was surprising though, because I felt like Joas would have been one of the people that actually spoke up in class too. But after that incident with me, he somehow just remained quiet. Yeah. And I always wonder too, does it always did that all like kind of come full circle and kind of, is he just keeping quiet because he wants to be this model student, right? Of like, I'm a black guy versus Fee, she's Asian, she has more leeway when it comes to speaking out. I don't know, maybe he felt like maybe there were some more, I mean, I can always ask him too, I guess, like have him as a guest, but I don't know.
I would also imagine that after everything he went through in college, he just knew there was no point in fighting that battle. Where you just like keep your head down and just get your degree kind
That's
of mindset.
True. Yeah, I feel like after that incident, that was actually with the mindset that I carried with me too, which is very sad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kept quiet after that. Like, I didn't care. I was almost done with school. It's core 399, freaking A. I don't give a shit, So.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's move on.
Let's get back on track.
I think it's clear we hated our college, right? I'm joking. We didn't hate it, but we had traumatic experiences at college. So. Because of racism and stuff like that. So yeah, let's see, the use of the N-word, if you don't mind, like if we can discuss that.
Sure.
Yeah, back at work, back at home in Mizoram, we still use the N-word, but not with the GA, but with the RO.
Oh,
like the Spanish version of yeah. So we use that.
I was about to say, like, y'all are going out of your way with this one.
And I don't know, like, Michael, we're very influenced by the Western world. We are. Like, we're very much influenced by American music, rap, especially.
Yeah.
So, of course, who do we copy? The Black Americans, right? And with that, like, rap comes this N-word, like, where, they rap about the N-word, and I try to chalk it up to them not knowing about it, right? Like the history behind this N-word, that it's bad, it's derogatory, and like all this stuff. I cannot say that word, so pardon me. Derogatory, but yeah, derogatory.
That's the one, derogatory.
Derogatory.
I was searching, so I was like, how do you say it?
But yeah, but then like, I do know that even to the people that uses that word in front of me, right? Like when they bring it up, right? And I try to educate them on it, they just ignore me, right? However, like, do you feel like there's a difference when because they say their excuses, well, we're not using the GA or the hard ER, we're using the RO, the Spanish way of saying black.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any difference to that?
So I do have to give a big disclaimer. I'm not African American. So my understanding really comes from studying it, because I do have a master's in history and just my experience around the world. In Portuguese, negro is a word you use for black man.
Yeah.
And it's not really perceived as racist. If you say black, it's actually worse than saying negro. In French, un négro, it's more culturally the same thing as how it's a hip hop thing. So it's not really a word used in that sense. And nègre, which is another variant, was used before, as in this is how you refer to black folks. Black folks would talk about themselves in that way. I think it's really fallen out of fashion, but I don't know where it is. So I think to go directly to the Negro word, I think Negro is less charged because it was just a word for black folks for a really long time. Because I think if you go back to Latin, it might be negris for the word black. But in America, they invented a word to talk about specifically black people that were enslaved, and that was the N-word with a hard ER at the end. And with hip-hop culture, in a way of reclaiming that history as like, you know what, we acknowledge that slavery happened and has created or has contributed to the creation of what became African-American culture. That word became a term of empowerment, but used within a very specific community. So if you're saying the N-word with the GA at the end, if you're not African-American, you probably should not. There is no such thing as an N-word pass. Even if your black friend said you could use it, don't use it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I have something to ask you about that there's no pass. I do have an experience in college that I've always been curious about. But anyways, we can leave that for sometime later. I didn't mean to cut you off, but you can keep talking.
No, that's so good. I kind of wrapped up my point. Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry. But like, you know, that with the EGRO, like that's something that we always have been using for the longest time, as long as I can remember, you know, since I was a kid. That's something that we use. And it's the same for our culture too. It's more rude to call people by the color of their skin. So we have certain words that we call people by, right? So say for example, like the Indians, mainland India, we're not Indians, like we're not the Dravidians, we're not this like all this like other people that you would consider a brown man, right? Like us tribal folks, we're not Indian originally. So when like I told you, when we were colonizing all of this stuff, like we just like and of course like mainland India tried to take over our territory too, and just kind of like invaded us too after the British colonization, I believe. My history is not so good, so
I don't know Indian history, man.
I apologize, like you're probably like, oh my gosh. But I tell a very good story when I'm drunk though. I'm a very good historian when I'm drunk. But anyways,
there's a show for that.
Oh really?
You never heard of drunk history? It's literally people, they get drunk and talk about a historical event.
Oh my gosh.
And then they enacted Comedy Central hosted. I think the show is done, but it's hilarious.
I need to check it out.
I'll send you the link after this. Already now.
Yes. So you know, we always have had this like kind of like I don't want to say hatred, but we always have had this like kind of like, I don't know, this need to kind of separate ourselves from them. And so of course we came up with this term called VAI. And if I were to spell it out for you, it's VAI. But in our tribal language, we have the A, like the Spanish, V-A-E. So I would be E, so VAI. So we just call them VAI, right? And that is more respectful because it came out of this bhaiya, which is Hindi for big brother, bhai. So we thought it's more respectful to use this term versus calling them brown man, you know? So I was just like wondering, like, you know, what did you think about that? But can I quick ask about that? There's no pass.
Yeah.
So when I was in college, like there were a few there were a few black folks that were interested in me, right? Like dating wise, right? And whenever they were interested in me and like we were talking about it, and of course, since I'm curious, I'm like, well, how about me, since like I'm Asian and I'm not a white person, and I'm your potentially, say for instance, I become your girlfriend, can I use it? And they'll say, sure.
Yeah.
So what's up with that?
So I think that's the thing, is like, if you're talking to one specific person who doesn't care about the word, that's between the two of you.
Okay.
But just because one person said you can say it to me, that does not mean you can say it to anyone else, because someone else might take offense. The other thing too is that, and again, this is not saying y'all can do it, but if you're not white, it's heard different. Like, it does not carry the same weight. In fact, you will see a lot of Mexicans saying the N-word, and no one bats an eye, and I think it's beautifully hilarious. But that's because, it's not that history of oppression.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I think, there's a bit of a, fraternal sentiment between people of color. Because I've heard Korean guys use it. And still, like, I had a friend, and his whole thing was, I want to be a rapper. I think he's a rapper, actually. He definitely dropped some music videos and whatnot. And he's only rode with the black kids, in high school.
The Korean friend?
And, yeah.
Okay.
And, like, he fought some guy over the N-word, but then he whooped his ass. And so he just got an N-word pass. I'm like, damn.
Wait. The Korean kid got the N-word pass because he whooped the black kid's ass?
So he was saying the N-word,
yes.
And a lot of the black dudes were like, I'm comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
Then this one guy was really mad. He's like, hey, man, you gotta quit it. And then he's like, what you gonna do? I'm gonna beat your ass. It's like, let's try it. And they did, and they fought. And the Korean guy beat the other guy's ass. And afterwards, then he was just like, one of us. But
so
then he's like doing rap and stuff, and so. But it was just hilarious. I'm like, this man earned his N-word pass.
He had an initiation.
Oh, it was wild.
Wouldn't that be hilarious that like even the black Americans here like start having initiation processes and they just put us through hell, and if we can pass all those initiation steps, we get the N-word pass.
Like, yeah.
Just imagine how many people will line up for that, Even those racist assholes will line up for that. Especially those racist assholes.
Yeah, that's messed up.
Oh, gosh.
But yeah, so that's to say, I think because of the history of the word, you just have to be sensitive.
Gotcha.
I'm not gonna lie. As a kid who liked hip hop and like idolized American culture from afar, I would use it, and then I'm like, oh, yeah, maybe I shouldn't be using this word. It's got a long history and not a good one. So
yeah, you're talking about how like you idolize something from TV, right? It's the same for our culture too. The only Western experience we get is through a screen, right? Because usually like getting visa to America is damn hard. Like it's next to impossible, right? And so of course like the only experience we get is through the screen. So of course there's this like kind of like a degree of kind of romanticizing the idea of being Western, right? Or like kind of like just kind of copying whatever they're doing on screen and just all of this stuff, right? I don't know, like do you feel like is it because that Hollywood is such a big mogul, right? It's such a big thing that it's trending all over the world, like not just in like big like other like developing countries, but even in like remote places like Mizoram, like we get to see the Western world. And do you feel like it's because of this Hollywood and like them just like perpetuating further into the fact that white worship should be a thing? Or do you feel like people in general just have a dislike for black folks versus like because say for instance like we have a Hollywood type of scene happening in Africa, and it becomes as big as Hollywood, right? And if we were to compare, I feel like for my people, we would still choose the white man over the black man, right? Do you feel like...
Yeah, no, I think, because we do. Like, you guys have Bollywood, we have Nollywood in Nigeria. And yeah, I do think that Western media has a bigger presence. And I wonder if part of it is, I don't know, like... I had it rough growing up. I don't know, I'm sure you also experienced hardship. And I think it's that ability to have that escape where you can imagine a life that is so far from anything you know, all of that hardship, all of that struggle. And I do think that that's how America media can tell it. Like, I remember there was this dumbass movie called Beethoven, and it's about a dog. But like, it happened.
I love it.
But you know, like that white suburban lifestyle, I was like, yo, these, because I live like right under the Sahara. I mean, these people have grass. Imagine that, man, having grass in your backyard. Because to us, we get grass when it rains, you know. So that's what 3 months a year, and it was wild. And and that idolization really came from that. Maybe I could be something different, you know. Like, what would my life look like outside of struggle? Still wondering. but yeah, and so I do think that that's part of it. The white worship, I don't know, I think it looks very different between different places. What I can speak to is in Senegal, a part of it is definitely a legacy of colonialism, because we got our independence in the 1960s and France had a very clear system of what makes you human and what makes you essentially just one step above, you know, an animal. And being white, and I'm sorry, like this was my master's thesis, being white was like the epitome of being a civilized person. And so there is a little bit of that, and one way that we see it is somehow sometimes, you know, if you have a group of girls at the club and one of them is white, you know who the homies are going to talk to first. And so things like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna quick change to my Mizo right here. So yeah, ka episode pa sa ka po hang kasuya kanin ka I American how chuan I hmuhsit bi kan nei ta chuanin entina abikin mi hang ho ka an sal an tan chinawang kanin I Hnamdang po hianin sal an lo ni na anga tele kami hei tuna Michael ina minron share po kanin hei aron soya po kanin mishing anga an ngai chinchu mingaw tho ni mo I mishing ber anga ngai kha hetian hei step khalom ta se tier mo cake layer ang chi khanom ta se khada po khanin achung ber om chu mingaw tho ni ta ni chon chu ta hanin khami kha Michael hi kan zon zaw le se ranga ena tinge mi hang ho hi kan ngai niam bi kheta atnoi bera kan da chanti come on. But yeah.
Yo, I need to learn Mizo. Like, I don't know what you said, but that's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I love our language. It's a dying language, so I'm trying to promote it, and yeah.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. It's actually really easy to learn it, especially with you like knowing French. You know, I think it will be so easy for you.
I don't know how to relate it though, like because I can work my way through Spanish because a lot of words are similar.
Yeah.
But like yeah.
Oh, Michael, I actually talked about how a little segue here. I talked about in my.
Is this live, by the way?
No, it's not live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be editing it and stuff like that. So yeah.
Because I mean, we've been going like crazy ass tangents.
But that's the beauty of a podcast, though, you know. So we can talk about anything. It's my channel.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm the boss. Finally, at least in this universe, I'm the boss. So, but
that's right.
What was I talking about? Oh yeah, my first episode. I was talking about. Wait, what were we talking about? I lost my train of thought.
I think we just talked about white worship, though I didn't really touch it.
Oh no, just before this sentence, before you said something. What did
I said Mizo is a beautiful language.
Oh, intelligence, science of intelligence. So my second episode, like, so like the episode that I just released on YouTube, I was talking about how being linguistically intelligent is a measure of intelligence too. Like, it's a one form of intelligence. Like, would you agree with that statement?
Yeah. I think anytime that you can show proficiency on anything is a type of intelligence. I mean, being a clown is a form of intelligence, because I know that would make for a really sad clown. So,
I'm bad at humor too, so bad at humor. Claire is actually really, that's weird, because Claire is actually really great at puns and like comedy.
Claire is witty though, like her mind is sharp.
She is.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. I wish I was as
nice.
smart as my sisters,
Right.
you know? But sadly, I'm the dumb one, so.
You're not dumb at all. Like my brother, same thing. Like his humor is just so precise. I'm like, damn.
Yeah, definitely. But it's weird because you guys are INTJs, right? INTJs, and
I don't know if he is. I am, but how do you know that?
I know that I specifically came to you just to kind of get the grasp of like why do INTJs process this information differently and kind of have this perspective versus me, where I'm just like emotionally charged all the time, and you know, like I was just.
Claire is INTJ,
yes,
right?
Yes,
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just like very interested because
INTJs either love or hate each other. There's like no in between.
Yes, I was like curious because you said, "Oh, I'm bad at humor." I'm like, well, I thought all INTJs were great at at humor because you guys are so freaking intelligent. So. Yeah. But yeah, so I mentioned about how, like, you know, being really well equipped with different languages is actually beneficial for, you know, progressing in the world, because I like back at home, like we try to promote just my tribal language, the one that I just taught.
Yeah.
And even when I was at home, when I talk other dialects, like other tribe, like sub-tribe dialect, they would just like, you know, they were just not accepting it. But you know, I'm like trying to promote like that. No, like actually practice, you know, speaking more languages, because it just, I don't know, I feel like it helped me a lot being able to switch.
Like on a very. One of the things that I've heard a lot of people in English say is that when you learn a new language, you see the world different, because you learn a whole new interpretation. So like, I mean, I'm sure that there are expressions and words in Mizo that you just can't translate into English.
Yep.
But that allows you to interpret reality in a way that someone who only speaks English might not be able to. And I've seen the difference between like French and Portuguese and English, and I would get mad all the time with English because I'm like, y'all lack expressions and words that are like specific to emotions. You know?
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah.
You know, that's so true. Like, I agree with you completely. Like, I have a hard time when it comes to like emotions and all of that stuff too. So, because our tribal language, like, we have emphasis behind certain words. So say for instance, like, I'm gonna slap you versus like, you know, if I was to say I'm gonna slap you in our language, it sounds so much painful and so much harsher, you know.
It's
okay, baby. Yeah. And so yeah, like there's this like kind of emphasis word, like, so, you know, like, and it's kind of like that sound. So like it sounds so much like painful, you know. So like so there's no word for it in English, you know. So, but how many languages do you speak?
I speak 3 and then double in Spanish. Yes, I speak French, Portuguese, and English.
Awesome. So jealous. So jealous.
I mean, I can't really take credit for it because my parents they speak French and Portuguese, and then they sent me to boarding school. That's where I learned English.
Yeah.
At the expense of French and Portuguese.
So so I wanted to kind of like get into that topic because I don't know, like there's this kind of like negative stereotype about Black folks being dumb, right? Like, or people that are from, you know, the third world countries, like say for instance, like you don't identify yourself as like, you know, African or like all of that, but however, like I think you get what I mean, like when I say that, like even me, like, you know, I think I already mentioned it in passing a little bit, how, you know, this white folks think I come from a rich family versus me being intelligent, because I'm able to, speak fluently. So I don't know, like, do you feel like that negative stereotype, kind of plays into the whole, I don't know, grand scheme of things when it comes to like us not accepting Black folks as much? Like, there's no such thing as Black worship versus like white worship. When we think about white people, we put them up on the pedestal versus like when we think about Black folks, the negative stereotypes that comes to our mind are like, oh, they're dirty, right? Like, or they are dumb. Back.
Yeah, I know what you mean though.
Yeah, I don't know, like, I don't know if it's because, like, we're just humans, and like, like somehow like ever since we were kids, like there's this like kind of association with the color Black and being dirty, being evil, like religion wise, Black is evil versus white is God, it's good, right? Like, I'm sure this topic is very redundant to you, but if you can like
no, I know what you mean though. I do think that there is definitely a human element, because I think if it wasn't skin color, it would be like, oh, they're poor people are this and they're not clean, or they come from this town, and in this town, I don't know, they do incest or something like that. So I do think that this marginalization is very common, and I do think that, and I hate mentioning this for so many times, but when it comes specifically to the perception of Blackness, it is colonialism that created a lot of these stereotypes. Some of it was self-serving. The other was just, people perpetuated the stereotypes. And that was one of the things that in my master's program I was working on. And was when we read the archives about the colonial period, there are some biases that are just perpetuated by the historians themselves, because we're not questioning the person who wrote down the sources that we're studying. And one such thing was, people thought that the African soldiers, because of the reality of war, they were not as good as, in some instances, as their European counterparts. But I'm like, but like, how were they being trained? Like, you didn't even, like, these guys would have to run without shoes. Like, to get shoes as a soldier, you needed special permission. And so I think that context creates the stereotype. The idea of the Black man being dumb often came from, you're taking these people from their communities and throwing them into something where they don't speak the language. And when you don't speak the language, how can you really communicate? And so they're like, well, he must be an idiot because he doesn't speak English. I'm like, but I never heard English until you all showed up, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
So I think that's where a lot of stereotypes come from. And I know that those stereotypes are not exclusive to Africans. So like Asian stereotypes I've heard would still go under that route, or maybe say that, the Asian man might be a bit naive because he will listen to you. I'm like, if he's leaning in, he's probably just trying to understand what you're trying to say, Like, that's a very normal instinct to like try to lean in closer to understand better.
Yep.
And so, but I do think that that's a stereotype definitely applied to. They're very unflattering, and and then you get like, I don't know if this is like PG-13, but like the whole sexual aspect of Black sexuality. Which is just so messed up. I'm like,
oh my gosh, thank you for bringing that up, because I feel like that's one of the reasons why folks back at home are especially like biased or prejudiced against the women folk getting together with Black men versus the white men, because there's that whole sexualization part, like the Black man equals big. So say for instance, like if you get together with a Black man, you're immediately equated to wanting the D versus you're right. I agree with you. It's just sad. I don't know, like I feel like, okay, so I know that you and I, of course, I don't want to say we're woke, right? But I feel like for me, like, again, like I said, like, I contribute me being more empathetic or more sympathetic towards this, you know, this whole situation and this topic because of my experiences and like kind of growing up like in a very racist culture, right? And then coming to America and being exposed into even a bigger racist culture. Like, and never ending, it's just never ending. And so so I don't know, like, I feel like what's the difference between you and I, where like there are some people, like, or not you and I, but like you and like other people, where they just don't care about like, oh, maybe this is a negative stereotype, like why is it that you and I are able to, you know, kind of stop and say, oh, maybe this negative stereotype might not actually be true, let me think about this, or let me have a different perspective, like why do you think that is?
I think that's where my atheist colors will show. I do think that belief systems can stop you from trying to think on the other side. For instance, I think like Iowa being a very Republican state, if they see a blue-haired lady who says she cares about, I don't know, social justice, they will not try to put themselves in the skin of that person to try to see it from their side, because they think conservative rhetoric villainizes the opposite, and I think that can happen on the other end too. And I think for folks who are, I don't know, because I don't think that that's like a personality thing necessarily. I think trauma, for one, can make you very empathetic. But I think when you try to have opinions of your own and you try to sorry, now my English is starting to... Let me just try to say it in French.
Yeah, for sure.
So when you try
just keep speaking French.
No. But I think what I meant is that when you try to have opinions of others that are your own versus, oh, my mother told me that this guy is trouble, so I'm just going to assume. I think when you don't do that, then you're more likely to see the person for who they are. How you get to that point, I do think life experiences are a big thing. Like, to be honest, I grew up in a very, and I don't know where your folks are at on this one, but very hostile environment to LGBTQ community.
Oh, definitely.
And then after I left home, I was like, well, that's what I was brought up to believe. And then I worked at Disney. And then I had coworkers who were gay, and I'm like, they're just the same as me, but this guy just has like a different sexual preference. Like, I don't see why the hell we're saying all these things as I grew up. And from that moment on, I was like, I am an ally. Like, this makes no sense to not think from their point of view. And I think that that's the thing, is because in that situation, I was willing to try to not hold on to what I was taught, but try to form an opinion of my own. Even here, it was difficult sometimes to sympathize with people who were blatantly racist and mean harm. But I would think, I'm like, okay, well, what is this person's background? Like, who are they? Who's informing their opinion? And then you're like, well, I still think it's messed up, but I can understand why you're at that point. And I think that little degree of compassion is what allows you to see a human, even if you disagree with them on everything and you think that they're harmful.
I agree. I think like that's the part where I still find it hard to in our language we call it sabti. Well, it's an inside family joke.
Like,
you know,
English like so many words.
Like, you know, it's an inside family joke too. Like, we would say like something like sabti na tuarlo, and if I were to roughly translate that, it's kind of like my American heart can't stand it any longer. So it's kind of like I just don't find it in my heart sometimes to just like forgive racist assholes, you know? And Joaz would always... It's hard. Even though I like logically I know where they come from, right? I just cannot find, I don't know, like peace within that whole, like, if you and I can do this, why can't they, right? If you and I just of this age, they're the adults, they're even older than us, why can't they? That's my question, is like, why are they so freaking damn stubborn when they pride themselves as Christians, they pride themselves as religious, like all of this bullshit. And again, I think it kind of just all harks back to like the hypocrisy of it all, right? But I don't know, I still cannot find peace within that, like even though I logically know where they come from. And Joas,
No, I get that. Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
And Joas.
Yeah, no, Joas, he's one of our friends. Like,
Yeah, you need to have that man on the show. By
I
that point, you know,
should.
we mentioned him so many times.
I know. We'll try to have Joas on this show too. He's our adopted brother. But yeah,
I literally grew up with him.
yeah, he is so. Yeah. Oh yeah, Michael and Joas, they grew up together in Senegal, right? Senegal.
Yeah, we go way back.
Senegal is in Africa, yeah. West Africa.
Right.
Okay, but wait, are you born in Brazil?
No, I'm born in Senegal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but my mother being Brazilian, then I have a foot in each country.
So lucky. I'm not authentic. I don't have any, like, my genes are very plain, so.
What, are you kidding?
But hey, I still have a one up against white folks. I'm joking. That's the Asian in me speaking, because we always think we're the best, you know. Asians, we're always like, ah. But yeah. But yeah, what was I gonna say? Joas always say something along the lines of, racist people just make me laugh. Like he just finds racist people hilarious, right? And I feel like I always tell people,
wasn't laughing that night. I can tell you that.
He probably was scared.
We were terrified.
Because he's just a kid, you know, like you're older, but even you, like you said that you were terrified. Like I can only imagine how scared Joas must be. Joas is way younger than us, so, but yeah, oh gosh. But yeah, like he and I always kind of joke, but you know, I want to be on that level one day, like be able to just find it funny, right? Find racism funny. But I don't know if that's something that's ever like should ever be an achievable goal, or like something that should be on the like a goal list, because you know, like racism ain't funny, you know, like.
Oh yeah. I know what you mean. I think if I hear you right, like you want to get to a point where you can just brush it off.
Yeah, I do.
And I think that's a very normal thing to strive for. Because I know that I think I used to think that I was good at just being like, you know, I don't have time for you, bye. But like you still let some things get to you. Yeah. And I think I can understand hoping that you don't get there anymore. I think over time we get better at it. But I think, like, at least to me, what keeps me from being able to completely like brush it off is the fact that I do care enough to try to understand why they think that way. Because I'm like, yeah, sure, like you're saying some wild shit to me, but to me that says more about you than it says about me, you know, like, and it doesn't even have to be race. Like here, you know, people are sexist as hell and they will say things about women. I'm like, what is it about your masculinity that you need to put someone else down to feel like a man? And so that's why to me, like, I don't think I could get to that point where I'm like, yeah, I'm totally unfazed, because I think if I got to that point, then I would be at fault of not seeing them as humans anymore, because I'm like, you're just not worth my time. So I think in my mind, that's the conflict. Depending on the day, some days I'm like, you know what, fuck him. And other days I'm like, well, let's try to understand it from their point of view. Like, can I don't know, reach this guy?
Yeah.
And you have a huge heart, so I'm sure that you also feel that too, where you're like, I don't want to just dismiss people. Yeah. Because I have been dismissed my whole life. Yeah. And it sucks. So I understand that. It's hard. Yeah. It's really hard.
I think it's the part, I think like, yeah, like I have a huge heart, but sometimes, you know, I feel like it's the part, like, I look like this, I look cute and innocent, right? But truth be told, like, I have anger within me, you know, of, like, just kind of like this this kind of like want, like sometimes I wish that our roles reversed and they get the taste of their own medicine, right? And I think that's the part that I find it hard to just kind of let it go, where it's just kind of like, well, what if it was you, right? And so like I don't know if it's because of that like kind of like vengeful spirit that I still hold strongly to more than me having a good heart, right? Like to be honest, but yeah.
Well, but like having a big heart doesn't mean you don't get mad. Or, yeah, so I totally understand.
Yeah,
and it's hard.
Yeah,
it's really hard.
Yeah, I sometimes like when people just dismiss you, like you said, right? Like when people just dismiss, man, I wish I had the power to do a role reversal and they stick in my body and they get all the treatment that I go through, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about workplace. Do you feel like, so this is where the model citizen comes in.
Hey.
Do you watch Abba and Preach?
No.
No? Okay. So Abba and Preach. So I think it was Abba that brought it up, like kind of like in a passing. And I don't think he meant it, like he was the one that meant that statement, but I think he was kind of joking and kind of like commenting on what this guy might be thinking. So there was this like bunch of, so they do reaction videos. It's kind of like a social commentary thing too, and they do reaction videos and they watch this YouTube video a lot called Jubilee. It's by this channel called
Jubilee is a great channel. Yeah, I know Jubilee. Yeah.
So yeah, they do reactions to Jubilee because anyways,
if you want drama, you should watch their
Yep. And so in one of those episodes, like the Jubilee episodes, they asked this black folks, and actually I don't know if there were other races too, but all I can remember is just the black folks, and asked them whether or not they think they were racist. And there was this one guy that was just kind of like commenting, depends, or maybe, or something like that, you know. And so Abba went off on it because he just found it so hilarious. It's like, oh yeah, because it's so multi-layered, and on this first level there's this and blah 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 blah. And in passing he mentioned I love him so much, but yeah, he kind of mentions in passing about this layer where black other minorities think that they have it as hard as black people.
Okay.
And I was just like,
wow.
Is that truly how? Like, I mean, you're not Black American, you're not American.
Yeah.
But, you know, if I were to look at you, right, I wouldn't think you're Brazilian. I wouldn't think you're Portuguese. No, I would just think black, right? Black guy.
Yeah.
You have mustache, like, or maybe he's Saudi.
But I know what you mean, though. Like,
right?
I said at the beginning, I can pass for many different colors.
Yeah. For me, I find you beautiful, but for some other people, you're very threatening, you know. But and guys, I'm not flirting with Gomez. He's very, very, very engaged. He has a fiance, a very beautiful woman.
That's so good. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and hey, I'm gonna take all the not responsibility, but all the what's that word? I'm the reason why they got together, because he used my candle.
That is true. For
their first date ever, I was the one that supplied Michael with the candle, so I need to be. This is my kind of inserting myself into your wedding.
No, but you're right though. Like that first date.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for your candles and Joess's cheese, it would have gone very different. Like, see, all comes back full circle.
Full circle. I'm joking, guys, but it's kind of like, you know, you don't get appreciated for so many things or given credit for some things, and you're just like wanting all this credit to yourself. But it wasn't me, guys. It's him and his sexy voice and sultry voice and all of that. But anyways.
Yeah. But like, if Liz was listening, she'd probably just agree with you. She's like, that's why.
Liz, it was my candle, okay? That was my candle. But yeah, I need to meet her too one day. So. Yeah.
I was hoping that you were still out here in Iowa.
Well, you guys can maybe visit if summer. It's beautiful here. We live in the beach.
We'll see, yeah.
So
because you said you're in Virginia, right?
Yeah, Virginia Beach. At the beach, so.
Daniel is in Virginia too.
Oh, really?
I don't remember where.
Daniel Amin?
Amin, yeah.
Oh, okay, good to know.
I don't know where exactly, but so sorry.
No, you're fine. Where were we?
So having it as rough as black people. So that's actually an interesting thing because I have not lived the American experience of blackness.
Yeah.
But the moment I stepped foot in America, I became African American of sorts, and this is wild. But I did my freshman year, my first year of university in Canada, and then I transferred to Dort. So I came from Hamilton through Detroit, and on Detroit I was gonna stay at a hotel. My brother would pick me up, so I took a taxi. And when I got in the taxi, the man was like, "Oh, where are you coming from?" I'm like, "I'm coming from Canada." I was like, "Is that where you're from?" I'm like, "No, I'm from Africa." I was like, "Oh, okay. First time in America?" I'm like, "Yeah." It's like, I need to tell you some things. And then he explained to me the experience of blackness in America. And one of the things he said, I remember, he's like, don't get caught like doing anything illegal with white people, because if there's a bust, it's your ass on the line. And he talked to me about police brutality and all of that. And I was like, yo, that's a lot to take in at once. But then I got adored. And, you know, it don't, like the first thing people see is a black man. And so they treat you as a black man. And not just people there, but like I would go run at night and I would have my hoodie on and listening to music. And the police car one time was just like following me until I realized I was being followed. Then I stopped and I was scared. And I just put my hands up and the police officer is like, take your hoodie down, because he saw that I had headphones. And then I take my hoodie down and then I don't know, like if then he felt like, oh, he's not that black. But then he was okay and drove away. And I was still like, I am treated as a black man, even though, like, you know, like you said, I can pass as Saudi, I can pass as so many things.
Yeah.
But the treatment was that. And I was thinking, like, what if that is your whole life? Like, that is not the same as us who come here and always have the option to, you know, move into something different. So I do think that the black experience in America is very unique. I do think that there is hurt. There's plenty of hurt to go around for every community. But in America, I think it's something very nefarious, very specific that you feel, and I heard the writers talking about it, as in you feel the weight of your skin because you're constantly reminded that you're black. And I don't know that other minority groups feel it in the same way because of, if anything, the police angle. Like as a black man, you're always first considered as a threat until you prove you're not. And so you have to be careful with your tone of voice. You know? Don't make any sudden movements. Put your hoodie down so I can take a good look at your face.
Yeah. I feel like when it comes to that, like police brutality in America, right? I feel like we definitely, as Asians, have an upper hand compared to the black man. Definitely. Or the black woman, right? Like, definitely. Or even if we go into a store and, like, say for instance, like me and I'm just gonna say Sarah, not reveal her last name, but Sarah. So we go into a store, I see the difference, you know, even with just the two of us, the way that they treat me versus her, and just kind of like I don't know if she even notices, but they would stalk her. Like, they would kind of like just kind of walk with her to see if she would, I don't know, because there's just that negative stereotype that, oh, if it's a black folk, they tend to, you know,
they want to rob,
versus me, like, you know, and again, like, I think, like, we talked already a lot about it. There's just that whole, like, you know, negative stereotype about it that is being, like, enforced more with the colonization and, like, you know, like, this white men, like, enforcing that this is how we are supposed to feel and how we're supposed to, like, just kind of perpetuating the fact further, right? But, I don't know, like, however, though, I feel like I just wanted to touch a little bit on the model citizen, because you know about it, like, you're the history major, and I feel like I'm not denying the fact that there was such a thing called the model citizen, and the white
Yes.
man came up with it, right? I'm not denying that. However, I felt like it was a little unfair because me, speaking from the Asian perspective, right? We are known to be very hardworking. We are known to play by the rules. We are known to stay quiet. Like all of this, like positive attributes versus like someone that might be black who is brave, unlike us who were taught our whole life to keep quiet. Therefore we follow the rules and we keep quiet, not because I'm not saying like Asians are weak and not brave, but
no, but
if
it's definitely a stereotype.
Yeah, if you are taught your whole life to keep quiet, of course you keep quiet. Even when you're angry,
Right.
you keep quiet. And especially as an Asian woman, like me talking this loud and all of this is not the normal,
Mm-hmm.
But and then versus like like back in the day, maybe like the black folks stood up against the or kind of try to fight the resistance versus like the Asians. They were just like, we'll take the beating as long as we got the money, maybe.
Right.
I don't know because I'm not there. I'm not very good with history, so maybe you can educate me on that, like opportunity to learn. But but yeah, like I felt like it was a little unfair, kind of just like judging from what I know my people to be. And I feel like the white men did definitely see that there was this chance to kind of pit the race against each other, right? And they took advantage of that and still run with it even today, right? And so like when people say something along the lines of when black folks think or when other minorities think that they have it as hard as the black folk, we do. Maybe not like police brutality wise, but other stuff we do. Have you not seen like the news where Asian folks got hacked like with machetes, broad daylight, old folks who did nothing, like especially with this pandemic, right? Like we still get the bunt end of racism, right? And I'm not trying to like compare and contrast and say, oh, we have it worse. Not at all. But I don't know, like when it comes to like, especially in the work area, like the workforce, it might just be me too. And pardon me if I'm reaching or whatever, but I feel like I'm the type of person, and I feel like almost all Asians will stand with me on this when I say that we do not take what we don't deserve. We earn it. Right? And so like when people say, oh no, the government has put this model citizen in place, so therefore you always have an upper hand versus us black folks, I cannot stand that. I cannot stand that because I did not take advantage of that. I did not at all take advantage of that. Right? So, but then again, like this is from, kind of judging from like just me going into the workplace, going through the process of interviewing, going through the process of like being like sieved through countless interviewers, right? Like countless other like candidates, and then the managers choosing me over these other candidates, white people including, right? And I earned my spot. How does that have anything to do with the model citizen? I strongly disagree, right? But then like I feel like there's just this like perspective when people look at someone like me and they just think you're Asian, so of course you're gonna get the job, right? So I don't know. What do you think?
So what I think and my understanding of it is that the myth of the model citizen is to give again a hierarchy of race, and it was in part to also the whole divide and conquer. It wasn't the first time. For example, way back, like why, if you ask the question, why in America is being black such, a struggle? And then when you think about how America was founded, you had indentured servants. An indentured servant is someone who is a slave for a period of time. They buy their freedom and they're good to go. But the reality of an indentured servant and a slave back then, there was a lot of overlap. So what did colonial orders think? They're like, yo, if the poor whites and the black slaves get together, we're in trouble. So we need them to hate each other. So we'll come up with a really demeaning concept of blackness so that the white folk will always think, as long as I'm not like the black guy, I'm fine because I'm white. And then when you start bringing in a lot of Asians to build the railroads, they were not leaving the American dream, I can tell you that. But then you still have that thing where you're like, we cannot let them get together because that would be trouble. That's where most of our cheap labor is coming from. And the fact that Asian communities were not disrupted like African communities were, where you don't know who your father is because he might have been sold, you don't know who your mother, your siblings. They were able to keep a certain degree of, stability when you think about emotions and whatnot, that I think were used then as a stereotype of, oh, you see, at least the Asians are polite and this and that. And I'm like, they have, they have families, they have a support system that slaves had to create with people they hardly knew. So then you have very different histories that impact cultural expressions in different ways. And there are studies about that, is how, if you experience trauma, one of the symptoms might be, if you never treat it, you might get angry fast, you might snap, you might be more callous. Now imagine that then your mom raises you like that. So what do you think is a normal way to react when you're mad? You snap. So then you start perpetuating behaviors that are not cultural, but they come from trauma, and the culture emerges around that. So when you insert a new group of immigrants at a later time that does not have that history, they're gonna have a different, socialization. And we don't see that with just Asians, we see it with Italians, we see it with Irish, etc. So then the myth of the model citizen was like, what is the group of people we can exploit that will give us the least amount of trouble? And that's and that's all it is. You want to be a model citizen, you bend over and backwards, never talk back, and then it doesn't matter where you're from, people will be like, oh, they're so good. Like right now, Mexicans. If you talk about hard work, everyone will be like, oh, Mexicans are such a hard working people. But why? Because a lot of them, they're like, I need a job, I'll take the job I get, like mostly when you talk about undocumented. So then now they're kind of becoming a model citizen, if you will, because of that. So, but I think that's where the myth comes from. Now the reality is, I don't know if it's helpful to ever have like a hierarchy of who is suffering the most. So like you said, and I do think that when it comes to workforce, to opportunities, external groups will always try to undermine your experience. Me as a black man in college, I was told I didn't deserve it. I was only in because of affirmative action. And so the same way, I'm like, no, like I fought tooth and nail for everything I'm getting. I deserve it. In fact, I think I deserve more than I'm getting. And I'm sure you're in the exact same boat. And so I do think that narrative is really to antagonize and I would just, I think that's a good point where you can like just brush it off like, oh, you think it's because I'm Asian? It doesn't matter. You're not the one paying my bills. And I know what I've done. People I care know what I've done, and that's all that matters. Because man, like even applying to grad school and whatnot, like I always felt, man, are they just letting me in because I'm black and they need like a smart, articulate black man in their institution? It's an awful way to think about yourself.
I feel like, it started when I came to college. It definitely started even then, right? Like where people were saying, well, definitely, like you speak well, you have a great accent, of course you were gonna get that visa. I'm like, you do not even go the extra mile or the extra step, not even a mile. You don't even need to go a mile. You just need to step 1 foot and ask, how did you get here? I would have told you how hard I had to work for it, right? How hard it was going through the visa process. Like, it's not as easy as people make it seem, right? Or, even back at home, like my people thought that it was so easy because my family, we don't boast, like we don't brag, we don't show off, right? So like my dad, like even though he is a well-off guy, right, he will wear tattered clothes, like he will wear t-shirts that are just torn, don't give a shit. He will never dress up. Even if he has to attend a wedding, he'll be like, do I really have to put a tuxedo on? Like, he's that type of man, right? So I grew up in, that's the type of family I was brought up in. So of course, like, people like think that we were, well, I don't know, maybe they have this kind of like idea that maybe everyone can get it, right? Because I never showed off that, and again, like, I hope this doesn't come off as me bragging, but I was a good student. I was a very smart kid. I never bragged about how smart I was as a kid. I always act dumb. I still do.
And you still do, yeah.
I still do. So you have to act dumb, sometimes just to kind of like blend in with the folks. And it's kind of like maybe because I act dumb, right? And it's my fault. I acted dumb. It's my fault. It wasn't their fault. I gave up this perspective that it was so easy to get a visa, right? Because people even back at home were like, oh, you got a visa? We should try it too. And I was like, sure, go ahead, please do so. And it's the same thing for even like my degree too. Like, and again, like, I am not the smartest kid alive on earth, right? Especially when it comes to like education and stuff like that. I am actually a very lazy student. I don't like studying. And there are so many better people back at home who, if they had the chance like me, would potentially even soar higher than I do, to be honest. Like, we are that smart, we are that good. But the thing is, like, doesn't the evidence speak louder, right? Doesn't the evidence speak louder? But why is it that like they just kind of like, like have this like kind of idea that, oh, it's just because you're Asian, of course you were gonna get it. Like, why? Like it started even at Dort, like, of course you were gonna get a visa. Like, look at you, you're good at English, you're good at your studies, blah blah blah. I'm like, no, I fought tooth and nail, like you said, right? Like just like you. And even get our degree, like, professors didn't just hand out easy A's. Except Professor, will he be your father-in-law too? Or because father-in-law by proxy.
Yeah, he is my father-in-law. Yes. Oh no, by proxy. Yeah, he's my brother's father-in-law.
Yeah, so he, Professor Taz, he gave out an easy A one time. He asked us to build an igloo, and he gave easy A.
He did not. I don't think he thought that the grading system had any intrinsic value, which is a philosopher thing to think. But yeah,
he is one of the professors I absolutely adore. So, but yeah, I love him so much. He's one of the people that made Dort fun, So, but I like you and I, like even you and I, like we didn't just get to where we are just because we cruised through it, right? Like, and I feel like the whole conversation that we have had, like, before, up to this point kind of proves that, right? Like
the past 3 hours.
Yeah, exactly. I should let you go soon. We're almost at the end, but yeah.
I'll be honest though, like my social meter is starting to like, like if it's a fuel thing, I'm starting to get really close to the red.
Yeah, you're gonna need to socially recharge again for like a year. So I should stop soon.
Now,
but yeah. So I was just
right. Yeah, and it messes with your head.
It does.
Because I think at some point you just wonder, like, is that true? You know what you've been through, but like, and I think part of me now tries to think that, and I think that's the hard part. It's because like I have never felt like that about someone. Like, they just got it because they're white and they're male. I'm like, yeah, sure, but like there's 5 other white male dudes that you still had to compete against.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it's that, human thing where we want reasons for things that we don't understand or feel like are out of our control. So if Fee and I apply for the same job and Fee got it, it must be because of course it's not because sometimes shit is just random. Sometimes you were cut lacking, so I wonder if there's a bit of that too.
Like instead of looking at my own shortcoming, I'd rather. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because like there was a job I applied to,
Uh-huh.
and honestly, I was like, I don't know what to give it to the other guy. Like the other guy, like not to brag, but I'm like, he did not deserve the job. And I don't think it had anything to do with the fact that I'm black. I'm just like, I just really think that that's just a random thing. Like that guy must have said the right thing at the right time and he got the job. But on paper, it makes no sense. But then you just accept it, you know? Like, it doesn't have to be malice always.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it is what it is.
Yeah.
And with visa, you can be the most eloquent, well-educated, have all the money.
Yep.
But if you catch the wrong interviewer on the wrong day, that is it. And you cannot control that.
Yep. That is so true. That is so freaking true. So, but yeah, and you know, that's another thing that I've always respected you for, is like your ability to just kind of like be logical about stuff and not just go immediately to emotions and just be like, oh yeah, it's because he is white versus I'm black, you know. So I hope more people get to watch this video and be more like you. I don't know. It just always.
I have so much to learn though.
Yeah.
About being a good person.
I agree. Like we always learn. Well, we always have something to learn more, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. Like I feel like it's just that, like, you know, kind of hearing that, like it just kind of threw me in this like loop of like, is that truly how every American sees us? You know, like when we are Asians, like that. Yes, we are minorities and we have it hard too, but somehow we have it way less worse than black folks, or you know, like that, you know, somehow like there's this like hierarchy or like whatever, like levels of like suffering. Like no, you know.
No, for sure. And like when with COVID all of that shit came out, I was like, yeah man, like why are we only talking about this now, you know? And then, you know, the circles I read, people like, well, people are trying to take the spotlight away from, you know, crimes against black. I'm like, you can have both conversations and understand that they're both equally messed up. And we need to do something about both, you know? And I mean, it's kind of like with the Ukraine thing, that a lot of folks are like, wow, now that it's white refugees, everybody cares. I'm like, yeah, but like let's talk about that, you know? I'm like, why no one cares about, you know, Cambodia or, you know, like, or
Myanmar,
thank you. I was trying to remember where Rohingya come from. So Myanmar, so
the
all of these situations
coup.
And I'm like, and we can have all of these conversations, but we just focus on one issue at a time. And I felt bad, man, because like, I think the other thing too is until, I don't know, people feel personally impacted by things, they tend not to care about it. But I remember that I never thought New York was unsafe until Daniel, when he was there, he's like, yeah, man, with COVID, I don't go outside anymore because people start calling me slurs. And I'm like, in New York City? Because when I was there, like Harlem, you know, is such an essential part of New York. That being black in New York City, I think is a different experience than being black in other parts of America. So I was like, yeah, racism in New York must be different, you know, and maybe it's just the cops that are racist. But then Daniel was like, no man, I go to the store and people are like, you know, F you Chinese man, and he's like, I'm not even Chinese, but I'm Asian. And then it just like, it's messed up. I don't know why we're laughing.
I mean, we're not laughing at Daniel's suffering or the racism, but
no.
But
we're laughing at how stupid racist things can be like.
Exactly, and I even that, right? Like Michael, wouldn't you agree that that's evidence that that balance, or that, like, you know, that scale can tilt to any race, anytime, like sufferings, right? Anytime.
I mean,
right?
Native Americans, bro. Like, who's had it terrible for the longest time on American soil are the natives.
Exactly, Native Americans.
But when was the last time that we talked about, you know?
Exactly.
Native American communities.
Exactly, like, man, it's just gonna be a whole other topic, and I want to let you go. because I don't want you to recharge for 2 years. So
that's all right.
But yeah, like, yeah, I agree with you. Like, even Native Americans, like, even still today, women are going missing. So just awareness here. But yeah, sad, very sad thing that's still happening. So yeah, thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. And yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you for letting me drain your social meter.
No, it's okay. I charged ahead of time. So this afternoon, I was just like reading a book and like,
oh, yeah,
charging up because I'm like, I want to give Fee the time of day. So, yo, you're special. So that's why I'm like, it's been a minute.
Yeah.
So I made sure I had no plans tonight and just kept it free.
Thank you so much.
Didn't get to reconnect with you.
I love that. I actually feel special because, like I said, like you're one of the
You are though.
Oh,
and your viewers are fairly gonna be like, yo, there's something happening.
Yeah, right. They're like, oh.
We've known each other for so long. Yeah.
Something sizzling here. Reminder, he's very, very engaged. But yeah.
But I keep an open mind.
Yes, definitely. But thank you so much. I hope that I get to like talk to you more again, like in the future, like maybe like some other stuff. Like I do still have so many things I want to discuss with you, especially like things like, say for instance, like the Kaepernick, is it Kaepernick, that whole incident and why it was. And no one wanted to stand with him. Then all of a sudden the Black Lives Matter happened and everyone's like, yeah, we stand with you, brother. Ugh. Yeah, the disgusting side of all that too. But yeah. Thank you.
Anytime.
Yeah.
And if you want to stop recording and just catch up too, I'm happy to do that. If you have questions about your life.
Let's do that. Bye, everybody. See you next episode.